Hey, welcome back to my channel. Hey, so today I'd like to talk to you about Savinelli's and Rossi's. The differences, or what's going on here, and all that good stuff. I see a lot of people's comments on posts online. I find some of the stuff somewhat not believable, as I worked in manufacturing before, and people have their own misconceptions of whatnot, and so I thought I would talk about them. This is my Savinelli 673 Roma Lucite. This is well known as the Matches 860 pipe, the Friday Night Savinelli, which is basically why I got it, because I'm really not that big on the shape. I do like straight pipes. And this is my Rossi Rubino Antico, which is a smooth finish, 8673. So Rossi puts an 8 in front of the number, and it's basically a Savinelli. And I've heard people say, well, Rossi's are like Savinelli's seconds and things like that, and I don't see it that way at all. Up until about 1985, I believe, Rossi was its own company. They were a competitor of Savinelli. I believe the guy or the family were friends, and they closed their doors in 1985. After which, and I'm not sure what year that Savinelli went in and bought the rights, but they ended up buying the rights to use the name and the trademark. So what they did was they basically went in and made affordable versions of their pipes. This is very much like what Gibson did in 1957. So in 1957, Gibson purchased Epiphone. Epiphone was a competitor, and Gibson purchased the company. Epiphone had its own models, and Gibson kept very few of them. And what Gibson did was they ended up started making affordable models of the Gibson brand, made in the exact same factory. They did this up until about 1970. But for instance, in 1959, Gibson introduced the ES 330. This guitar is a very well-known guitar if you see it, because you would recognize it from the Beatles. However, the Beatles used the Epiphone version, which was released in 1961, called the Epiphone Casino. The Epiphone Casino and the ES330 are virtually the same guitar built in the same factory. So what's the difference? Well, in my opinion, I believe that Gibson was probably having their premier guitar makers make the Gibson product, while the people that were being trained, or the newer people on the job, were building Epiphones. Also, the wood, you would have the higher grade wood being used for the Gibson guitars and the lower grade wood being used for the Epiphones. Now, when we grade wood, we're talking about visually how it looks. And when you see like a flame maple Les Paul, that can be an expensive piece of maple, as opposed to when you have a plain top, it is a cheaper piece of wood. However, sound-wise, functionality, it's all the same. Well, the same goes with the Savinellis and the Rossis. I have these two pipes, and this is my Savinelli. And if I were to smoke the pipe the way Matches smokes it, which is, he just held it up and smoked it. He wasn't a clencher. I'm a clencher. So here, this feels great. I could keep it in my mouth. It has a great feel. The stem is really wide, and so the way it sits in my mouth, it just feels great. Now the Rossi, the stem doesn't feel as good. It's narrower. It's okay. But if I had to choose, I would choose the Savinelli. As far as the pipes go, they both smoke identically. They're great smokers. I can't tell the difference, and I'd be hard-pressed to tell me that if anyone could tell the difference. I've seen people online say, nothing smokes like a Costello. Bullshit. All pipes smoke the same to me. This isn't rocket science here, folks. You've got a piece of briar and a hole that goes through it. You stick a stem in there, and you're smoking tobacco. We're not building an engine. Anyway, so I believe that they're both very good pipes. I don't believe the Rossis are made from seconds. I believe they use the nicer briar set aside for the Savinellis, and probably the less impressive briar set aside for the Rossi, which would be price-wise, it would make sense. And then probably they have the newer builders making pipes on the Rossis and the more seasoned guys making Savinellis. Either way, if you like the way the Rossi feels in your mouth better, it has a better mouth feel, or you're not a clencher, then you might like the Rossi better. I'm just saying my preference, and it has nothing to do with the price. I could care less. If Rossi made a wider stem, then I would say they were the same, and I wouldn't see a reason to buy a Savinelli. Now, I've seen 2 a.m. Pipe on the Patio video. This guy is a great channel, smokes a Savinelli 320 author, and he talked about smoking a Rossi pipe, and he had the 8320. He was saying that the mouthfeel wasn't good on the Rossi. Then he bought a newer one, and he said, oh, they fixed it, and he liked the way that newer Rossi smoked. So, again, it doesn't matter. The pipe, they're both great pipes. Savinelli makes some great products, just same way that Gibson and Epiphone. However, in 1970, Epiphone was sent overseas, and, so then you got to deal with which manufacturer was making the better one. It's all OEM stuff overseas. Now, OEM means original equipment manufacturer, and I've seen people asking online about the Baracchini brand of pipes. Baracchini is owned by STG, Scandinavian Tobacco Group, and it is made, what they claim, by a big manufacturer in Italy. And I've seen people say it's Savinelli, and I've seen other people say it's not Savinelli. I would be surprised if it's not Savinelli. I have a Baracchini. The feel of it feels like my Savinelli. But it just makes sense. And I've seen other people say, no way, it's not them, it's not them. Like, it couldn't be, but no facts behind it. But for the most part, let me explain to you something. I've been in the music business for a long time. And there's a string manufacturer out there, and I make no bones about it on my guitar channel, that it is my favorite string company. They make the strings that I really use. However, they make a lot of people's strings. They're OEMing stuff everywhere. And when I tell people, listen, you shouldn't buy that brand because all it is this brand with that brand's insignia on it. They don't want to hear it. But I will tell you this. Gibson strings that says made in the USA, that's not made by Gibson. Fender strings that says made in the USA, that's not made by Fender. PRS strings, that's not made by PRS. I can go on and on about how many strings this company makes, but they also have their own brand, and they're a big brand. Well, where Savinelli is the big player in Italy, I would imagine they're OEMing several pipes for different companies because it makes sense. If a company comes to you and your factory has the ability to produce 5,000 pipes a month, let's say, and I'm just making up numbers, so don't quote these numbers. And let's just say your brand is selling about 2,500 a month. And then your knockoff brand, which is your Rossi, if you will, is doing about 1,500. So you have about 1,000 pipes you could make a month. And if somebody comes along and says, we need 1,000 a month and this is what we're going to pay you, well, they're already sold. You don't have to deal with the selling, the marketing. That's somebody else. You're just the manufacturer and you're sending it out. So it makes sense. I would imagine they're making for quite a few companies. Like I have a La Rocca pipe, and that's also an Italian company. I don't think Savinelli's making it. It doesn't feel like a Savinelli, and it just doesn't come across to me like it was made by Savinelli. The Baracchini to me feels like a Savinelli. Anyways, the difference between Savinelli and Rossi, again, they're both owned by Savinelli. The Rossi is a brand that was a competitor. They make the less expensive pipes under that brand name, and they're fine pipes. They're excellent. I think the Baracchinis are excellent pipes. There's a lot of great pipes out there that you don't have to spend a fortune. And if you really like the fancy woods and all that, then absolutely go buy it. People used to say to me all the time when I ran a music store in Los Angeles, they would say to me, what guitar should I really get? I want to have it on my wall. And I'm like, well, if we're talking about fit and finish and probably the most detailed work and beautiful fit and finish in the business, you're looking at PRS. That's just a fact. I never liked PRS. I never played PRS. I really don't care for the instrument that much. I don't like the way they play. Some people absolutely love it. But regardless, they have a beautiful fit and finish. And their guitars fetch sometimes up to $10,000. So are you going to tell me that that guitar that costs $10,000 is going to do more work in the studio and sound any different than a guitar that costs $1,000? It's not. It really isn't. The player may like that better than the other. However, for me, I custom make my own Strats, and they end up costing me somewhere around $1,000 to build, and I'll put them up against any $5,000 to $10,000 Fender custom shop. I don't care. The way I like it, it's the way I play it. So whether it's Savinelli or Rossi, they're both fantastic pipes. Figure out which one you like the way it sits in your mouth, then you'll know which one you'll like. I hope you found this video entertaining, and maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't. Who knows? Very good.